just a lot of different people that passed through here. It wasn't just the families of this area that are buried here. There's actually some unknown Teamsters and other people that are known to be here. It's now Dorado Hills.
It's called Dorado Hills now.
Correct. Now the actual part that's left, which is shut off from access at this time, the town itself of what remains, with a few houses in the barn that used to be the schoolhouse,
and that's what you see from Highway 50.
That's what you see from Highway 50.
And
that was the hub of it.
out there sometimes.
One of the earliest civic movements in Dorado Hills, before there was anything but a gas station there, was the gas station owner lobbied Rand McNally to put Dorado Hills on the road map. And it took all sorts of effort. It's a big long story that he tells, and he's told it at one of our meetings actually, and he finally got it done. He got Dorado Hills on the map. And it was hard because there was already a Clarksville there.
Yeah, interesting.
There are 3 brothers that were unmarried, and they're all buried there together. And one of the brothers, his name is Jim, his given name was James, and he was actually a Civil War veteran. And then these are the Jurger family. And they actually lived in the old Norman Tavern. They had it remodeled and they lived in it. And the Renwicks are related to the Jurger family, which is why they're here. And Mrs. McKinley, she married into the McKinley family, but she was originally a Jurger, so she's buried here with her parents.
Most of what's now Dorado Hills was at one time or another a Jurger ranch. There was a lot of swapping and selling and stuff, and marrying and stuff, but the name Joe Jorger, when you look at the old maps, it's everywhere.
They're very, very industrious. They had cattle, and Mabel is known for volunteering within the community. So just a really, really prominent family, and you'll see their name in a lot of places, especially associated with the Old Mormon Tavern. Over here you have the Wilsons, and they're another large family that came out to California with the Fitz and the Fitch families that we'll learn about. And they did some cattle ranching, and some of them were known for chicken ranching. Now there's no one buried here. This is just a plaque that was erected to remember twin babies that have been stillborn to Geo and Myrtle Wilson. So, but they're not actually buried here. And the Wilsons are very active with the cemetery. In fact, their family was just here over Memorial Day and spent some time up here. And they come to Clarksville days. But this is a really nice little tombstone. I mean, back in that day, these materials were very expensive, and they would have to import it from San Francisco or Sacramento. And yeah, Sacramento isn't very far from us today because we have cars, but back then in the 1860s, Sacramento was a pretty good trek. So this was probably a more prominent family that erected this for her. So, and then we have, I want to go here, we have the Porter family. And not a lot is known about the Porter family. They just lived in the area. They weren't necessarily in Clarksville, the actual town of Clarksville. Several Porters that are buried here that do not have name plaques, which is why they have just one plaque for representing Porter. So they were probably a more prominent family as well.
What's the purpose?
System to pull it open in order to encase the deceased person, and then they could lower it back and seal it up. So a lot of times when one of the prominent family members, say the husband, died, when they would erect his grave, they would just lay the family plot at that point. And so some of these would have been vacant until, you know, more of the family became deceased. So that's why you have the reeds. It was a way for them to get access in there to... It's not uncommon, not just at Clarksville, but in this area, to see wooden signs. This one appears that it may have been replaced recently, which is actually pretty common. A lot of family members may not have the money for a tombstone, which can cost a few $1,000s, but also that was, you know, their family's original tombstone, so they like to keep it original with that era and how it was originally placed. So that's actually in really good condition. So like I said, it's probably been recently redone. Eliza came out. She was originally a Wilson, and she lived with her sister Mary. And Eliza married a Fisk, and her sister Mary married a Fitch, and they came out to California with their new husbands and their mother, Annie Wilson, who was a widow, and they came out from Illinois. That's how they're all related. They're cousins. So you've got the family here. Ranchers. So, and then this is the Fitch family. Like I said, they were related. The one over here next to the tree that says Mary E., wife of George Fitch, that's actually, Eliza's sister. And then Annie, which is buried next to Mary, is the mother of both girls. So that's kind of a neat pioneer story to come out here with your new husband and your sister and her new husband and your mother, and just kind of set up on a ranch. So from what I've heard, his family put that on there for him. It was rumored that he loved trees and he collected different trees, but the tree, it represents like the tree of life, but he may have been affiliated with some organization where that was a common monument. We have Mr. Sam E. Kyburz. He was a corporal, the 2nd California Cavalry, Company D. We had a Civil War, it was the 150th anniversary last year, and we had a memorial for him up here. And he's pretty notable. They had traveled from Wisconsin out here with the Donner Party for a little bit, but they actually separated. They actually got to California before the winter hit. This grave here, we do not know who's buried here. None of the pioneer families that were interviewed seem to know anything about it. All we really know is that it was rumored to have been a young maiden. Nobody really knew her name or where she came from. Again, probably from a well-to-do family, because you see this really nice intricate fence, which was not cheap back in those days. So whoever is buried here, her family probably were in this area and had something to do with cattle. I would assume that's where the money was made, but we really just don't know. There's no records. Some of these burials predated the requirements by the county to actually be on record, which sounds a little strange, but there were days where you just would come out and bury somebody. So.
I'm Janet, and I work here at the Senior Center, and we're so excited to have members of the Clarksville Region Historical Society. Did I get that right? I was wanting to call it regional. And just coincidentally, Pat Thompson here in the cowboy hat works for us here at the Senior Center, so you'll see her around. And she's an active member. Pat. And Betty January has been a volunteer in our community forever and ever. Now, as you know, we're El Dorado Hills. Before El Dorado Hills, this area was called Clarksville. And before that, it was called Clarksville. And it was established in 1848, just before the gold rush. And the name change was to El Dorado Hills in the 1960s. The first actual people here in this area were Indians. And the grinding rocks, if you take, there's right now, if you went past that Korean church, you know, on Silver Valley, you went past there, there's an old road there.
And if you go up, but you can't get through it because there's a lock on it.
That's
It's
the
private-
Toad Road
Yeah, it's private property up there.
and the Lincoln Highway.
Yeah, and the Lincoln Highway. And if you pull off the road there, and you walk up, and you don't do it ever in the summer, okay, because there's
Snakes.
rattlers, and there's poison oak all over in there, okay? Anyway, we went down in that, we went down to the road, and the old road is just unbelievable. It's just so clean, but you can see where people stopped along the way and built a mine. I mean, it's right there, right past that church. I mean, you could see where it's dug out along the road where people went in and looked for gold. But anyway, across there's a little creek, and so all these rocks are scattered all over. The first building in this area was Mormon Tavern. It was, and this plaque here is in a very obscure area off of Silva Valley Road. And yeah, and if you turn left on Jerger Cutoff Road, where there's an old house up on the hill there, and at that place, this beautiful plaque is really nice. It talks all about when it was established in 1849, and it was used as a Pony Express terminal. They stopped there and exchanged horses. And also a lot of people stayed there during the gold rush. The first name of our town is Clarkson. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss a page? The first name of our town was called Clarkson. And Clarkson had 4 hotels in the mid-1800s. And Mormon Tavern was one of those 4 hotels. It was a very, very large hotel. And also after that, after 1861, it became the residence of the Jergers, which is another name of a ranching family here in this community. Also, there was another large hotel called the Tong Railroad House. It was about a half a mile from Mormon Tavern. It had a 70-foot dining room, and it had a very large bar and a big dance hall, and it was always crowded. The Wells Fargo, and she's our representative at Clarksville Day, had a counter at one of the local stores right there, right on the Lincoln Highway, and that building later became a saloon, then a residence, and then it was abandoned. And if you see it now, you saw it on the film before, there's 3 walls left, 3 brick walls that are still standing on that building. By 1855, a post office was needed. So Clarkson just didn't work for the post office, and so that's how we got the name Clarksville. This one's yours, right? I need one more. This is a very controversial item, and I'm sorry, I one slide off on this one. Clarksville's population is something that is always questioned, and that is because there was the gold rush, where there was a huge influx of people, but the population itself was really in the hundreds. And it grew during the gold rush, maybe to a maximum of 700. But the actual 1880 census shows that there were approximately 800 souls in Clarksville. The miners stopped in Clarksville for supplies just before they were headed up to the gold fields. And of course, rumor has it, and the stories in some of these articles here, that there were 10 saloons in that very small town. What made Clarksville really neat was that it was halfway between Sacramento and Placerville, so it was a good place for people to stop and rest and have a couple of drinks, I guess. I don't know. And then, as I mentioned, with the Indian grinding rocks, there was a toll road over there, and that was established by the Tongs, which was another family that migrated to this community. In fact, the Tongs are the ones that basically own the whole town 7 years ago, and then sold it to some developers. And so they were really the last people that were out of there, with the exception of the 3 people that live just outside of the community.
How long ago was it the Tom sold?
About 7
years?
Yeah, it's been
Pretty
about.
recent.
Yeah, about 7 years. Robert, it says in there that in 1881 you guys made 17,000 pounds of butter. So that's pretty cool.
Most of the dairies were budgetary back then.
Yeah, and what they did was you had it in Folsom and then you did it in Truckee.
That's it,
Both places.
in Truckee.
Right. Okay, moving on. Another claim to fame for Clarksville is that we have the longest, best section of the Lincoln Highway. This was the first highway that was established by the government that went from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we have it right there, and you can walk on it, and it is amazing. It's cement. And it's like 18 inches of cement. And you can see the line in it. They used it, I don't know how they did it, but they did something to the cement so you can see where the line is, where you have to keep your little small car. Our cars are so much wider now, it's amazing. Before the Lincoln Highway, we did have the railroad thing going on. And so everybody was Tong Railroad House and all this other really cool stuff that we were going to get the railroad in Clarksville, and it was going to be great. Anyway, it didn't happen. Sadly, it didn't happen, and it went to Latrobe. And so that was part of the real demise of Clarksville.
In the early days.
In the early days, yeah.
1860.
Yeah, and that was, in the late 1800s. But anyway, and then even when Highway 50 was rerouted the way it was, everybody was using the Lincoln Highway, and then everybody started using Highway 50, and then again that caused a little more erosion to the economy and what have you there. But this here is the Lincoln Highway in the town, and we have a lot of Model A's that come to Clarksville Day, and they let people ride in them, so I got a ride on that one. That was kind of cool. When you're driving down Silva Valley, there's a bunch of, like a palm tree, and there's the evidence about a house that actually burned down and stuff, and it's just before you start coming into where Serrano is, when you come around that bend, and actually there's a tree falling down there right now, and that belonged to George Clinton Fitch. And he owned 160 acres there, and the location in the deed says Buck's Flat. So Silva Valley used to be called Buck's Flat. So when you can really jazz your friends when you're saying, I'm going to go over to the library, I'm going to take Buck's Flat. But anyway, he ended up owning 440 acres, and then in the census it said he had 60 dairy cows, 95 other cattle, 10 horses, 5 pigs, and 90 chickens. And all of that was valued at $2,800. And anyway, that property was lived in by Albert Fitch until it burned down in the 1950s. So when you drive down that way towards the library, you come around the bend, and you go under Highway 50, that's what you'll see right there. That's what that is on the right.
Right now, we're trying to find the Richmond Hall Cemetery. We can't find any trace of it at all. We only know that it was there. There's rumors as to what happened to it and everything, but they're trying to find it because the interchange could actually disturb it. It's not marked. And they have gone and done whatever they sonar or whatever they do on it, and they haven't been able to find it.
Some of the houses have already collapsed right on top of each other. So some of the old houses, it's just over. It's just real sad. But that's the way it goes. And again, as we mentioned, in the 1960s. It just really was the end of this little community.
Nice job.
Thank you very much, you guys. Awesome. Thanks for
Clarksville Region Historical Society. We are here today on this 150th anniversary of the Great Civil War to honor Corporal Samuel Elliott Kyburz, a veteran of that war. Your program outlines the service of Colonel Kyburz here on the western frontier. In addition to Corporal Kyburz, we have two other veterans buried here in Clarksville. Sylvester E. Myers, who served in World War II and Korea, and Jean D. Johansen, who also served in Korea. Those veterans' graves are on the western side of the cemetery and are marked by two larger flags. I would like to recognize the work done by the members of the Clarksville Region Historical Society, who spent many hours planning and executing this event. Will the volunteers please stand up? Clarksville people. And I would especially like to thank our own Betty January, who was a real spark plug in our organization and the community. Stand up, Betty. Woo! Thank you so much. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please all stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. For the invocation, I would like to introduce Colonel McArdle, Chaplain, 31st Regiment.
Pop up there. Please bow your heads. Almighty God, we come before Thee today as Thy humble service. We ask Thee, Father, for Thy blessing among all those who are here and among our men and women serving now in the service. We ask Thee, Father, for a special blessing among all of our veterans, those that have gone before us, those that are still living here today, that they be recognized continuously for the service they have given to this country for our freedoms. We ask Thee, Father, to protect us today as we meet for this service in the honor of this corporal, I believe. May no harm may befall us. And these things ask humbly in the name of Thy beloved Son. Amen.
Before we go any farther, I would like to introduce someone in our audience. Jeanette Rogers Booth is a member of the El Dorado County Cemetery Advisory Committee. Where are you, Jeanette? I'd also like to recognize anyone here from the Pioneer families. Do we have anybody here from the Brunello family? From the Ewer family? From the Fisk family? All right, we have Fisks here. The Fitch family? Yes. Griggs, do we have any Griggs here? Any Griggs descendants? Okay, Kyburz. Yes, we have Kyburz here. Mosier, anyone from Mosier? Rustler. Do you have any Rustlers here today? Anybody from the Walker family? Any Walkers today? And last of all, any Wilsons here today? Very good. You're really representing everybody.
There weren't many people to marry.
Oh, okay. I'd now like to introduce Jennifer Lacey, who is a Kyburz family descendant, who will now share her thoughts with us. Jennifer.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. First, I want to say how impressed I am with all the work that's gone into preparing this. I've been up here before when the cemetery was kind of hard to walk around. It's not so today. My relation to Sam and Rebecca Kyburz is I'm a 5th generation. I'm off of their fourth child, Maria, who died young. Many people did not know they had 6 children. All right, sorry. Many people did not know they had 6 children, but they did. That's the line I'm off of. I've often wondered why should someone in history be remembered? And of course Sam was a participant in the discovery of gold, but I wondered why else should he be remembered? Articles have been written about him, the Forgotten Pioneer, and I do have to agree with that. I think he's a forgotten pioneer. I think he's left quite a legacy in this county and in the state. He has many great-great-grandchildren still alive today. I'm trying to locate the ones that are alive. I'm trying to complete my family tree and see who I'm missing. But I think that says a lot for someone and why someone should possibly be remembered in history because of what they've left and the generations they've left behind them. Anyway, it is an honor to be here today to honor Samuel Elliott, and I thank you for coming.
I think you folks have noticed our Civil War military unit. We're very glad that they came today. We're very glad to see the people from the contemporary military here today because we feel, I'm sure, all of us, that on the 150th anniversary of the great Civil War that divided the country is now one. We are one and indivisible, and our military holds us together. They're the bonds. They who we salute. They protect us. They make us safe to the extent they can. What I'd like to do now is introduce Chaplain McCardle again to help us go through the military part of the ceremony.
All right, our reenactors will be coming forward on their horses and posting their rifle detail for the ceremony. During the firing of the 3 volleys with the rifles and the playing of taps, we ask that you all rise. If you are a veteran or may be currently serving, you may render the proper hand salute. All others, if you wish, may place your right hand over your heart. At the conclusion of taps, you may take your seats. And then we will proceed with the flag portion, presentation portion of the ceremony. Thank you.
Colonel McArdle, Chaplain, 31st Regiment, will now give the closing benediction.
Thank you. I know this has been kind of a momentous occasion for a lot of us, especially for us, those of us here in uniform. For all veterans that went before us since the war of 1776 are our brothers and sisters. Please bow your heads. Almighty God, we come before thee at the end of the ceremony. Thank thee for the many blessings thou give us. We ask thee, Father, again, to watch over those veterans that are serving all over the world, that they may be in good spirits and good health, no harm may befall them. We ask thee, Father, to watch over those who are here today, that as they depart, that no harm may befall them, and they may reach their destinations in safety. And these things ask home in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Again, thank you very much for coming, and God bless America.
I'm a couple great niece of Sam Elliott Kyburz. He, his sister, and his parents came out to California from from Wisconsin, where he was born, in 1846. They arrived at Sutter's Fort mid-October in 1846. Lived there a while, moved to San Francisco, went back to Sacramento, eventually migrated up to Clarksville. By that time, Samuel had 4 other siblings, additional siblings. They lived here all until they passed. Sam Elliott signed up during the Civil War. He was with the 2nd Company D, 2nd Cavalry. He served until the end of the war. I guess they were a little disappointed because they didn't get to go to the East Coast and fight in the war. He lived quite a long life. Died in 1917. He has quite a few descendants that are still alive and in the area. Kyburz family actually has quite a few descendants around here, of which I'm honored to be one. And we came today to honor Elliott, Samuel Elliott, for his time and service in the Civil War. And it was quite an honor to represent the Kyburz family here today.